Hello everybody. Check out this clock I found at a yard sale. The only reason I wanted it was for the clock faceplate. I thought that was beautiful. I thought I could go ahead and use it, just as decor, but I gotta remove it from this nasty piece. The guy originally wanted like $5 for it, and I was like, and he's like $3, and I was like, okay. I figured $3 for a faceplate was good enough. Oh, okay, it just spins off. Dang, look how old that is. It is an old one. There we go, easy peasy. Kinda, sorta. So, I kinda would like to have those hands on there. I might just glue those on. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside. Okay, so this piece, I thought, well, hey, maybe we can just dress this up. It is filthy. This is so filthy. See how it's held together. So I am going to want to add some wood glue there. But I need to clean this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to clean it with some water and Dawn dish soap and be right back. All cleaned up. This is the back side, and you can see how these slide in and out. So I do want to add some wood glue. And if you ever come across a piece like this, just make sure to add that wood glue towards the inner side. That way when you slide it back, all that wood glue will actually be on the piece. And then I'm just using a little Q-tip just to kind of clean up some of that excess glue that spit out, flip it over, wipe up some of that excess glue. And then I am going to go ahead and clamp it together while it's drying. I'm just going to use this painter's tape just as a guide. Okay, it's not going to stay there. That's the back side. And to fill this hole, I'm going to use this dowel rod. First cut it down because I definitely don't need this much. Okay, this dowel rod's not the perfect size, but it'll work. I just want to fill that hole so I don't have so much excess amount to fill in, because I don't have any Bondo or anything like that. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to let all of this dry and come back to it. And in the meantime, I'm going to go back to this clock face and I'm going to use some CA glue and just attach these hands. I don't know. I just thought these hands were just too perfect and too vintage looking to leave out. So I'm using that glue. Now I was getting a little frustrated and I had some of the accelerator to make this CA glue dry down a little quicker. I don't suggest you do that, okay? Take it from me, because watch what that accelerator does on the surface. Now, see that little white spot appearing? Yeah, it does not wipe off. I tried to clean it with some cleaner. It does not come off. I don't know if I use like a brass cleaner, if it will make it go away. I haven't tried that yet, but I just wanted to share this step with you. Just be careful what you spray that accelerator onto. Now to get back to this wood piece, I did let this sit overnight and dry. 24 hours is what I let this cure. Now I'm just going to grab, this is just a pair of pliers, wire cutters. If I would have had my little jigsaw closer, I probably would have used that just to trim it down. This does work. I just try to snip it off as close to the wood as possible. And you can see that having that tape on there just prevented it from going beyond that. So I don't have to worry about that there. But I'm going to use an 80 grit sandpaper and I'm going to sand this down flat and even with the rest of the wood. If I would have been in a garage or a workshop, I would have used an electric sander to do this, but I don't, so we're doing it by hand. And once I've got that even, I will go over it with a 220 grit sandpaper just to get it nice and smooth. Now I'm going to grab some spackle and I am going to apply the spackle right on top of where that dowel rod is. It's going to get into all those little areas that are not completely concealed, because if I painted right over that, you're going to be able to see that little ring line, and we don't want that. And once that's dried, I will completely sand the entire piece with a 220 grit sandpaper. Now, I'm going to grab the color crinoline. I did not spray this piece with a sealer. I forgot. So to prevent any bleed through, I would highly suggest you use some type of sealer like a shellac just to prevent that bleed through. But I am going to take this crinoline. I will cover this entire piece. I apply 2 coats. Now, once that paint has had a chance to dry, I've got some of this decoupage paper. I picked it up from Amazon. It's definitely got a unique texture to it. I've never quite used a decoupage paper like this before, but I did like this pattern, and I thought, you know what, this is going to look really pretty sitting here right on that circle area. So I'm just going to kind of trim that paper down, and the texture on this paper is so unique that when I tried to do a crease around where that circle was, it was not showing up at all. So I'm just going to kind of fold my paper inward just to give me an idea of where the edge of the circle is. And then I'm just going to trim that out just to make it easier to lay down and work with. And then right here, I'm just playing around to see how well that's going to sand off, because I was like, this paper's so weird. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to grab some clear liquid patina. I wish I would have grabbed something thicker. I think a Mod Podge with this thicker paper would have worked out better. I mean, the liquid patina seems like it's holding up okay, don't get me wrong, but I do think something like a Mod Podge or a gel medium, decoupage medium would have worked better. So you do you, but again, I'm using clear liquid patina, just going to spread that all over and then get this paper down, working it with some clear wrap here just to get all of the wrinkles out. Now, once that's dried, make sure it's dried. I am going to take this little X-Acto knife and I'm just going to work around that circle to trim off that excess paper. I just don't have a lot of space to take that sander in a downward motion before it hits the rest of the board. It was just going to be too difficult to try to achieve the look that I wanted. So hence the X-Acto knife. And it's okay if I get little score lines. Now I'm doing this lightly because I'm trying not to dig and gouge into the wood, but it's okay if I get little scratches here because I'm going to be covering that up and disguising it anyway. But you just work your way around gently, take your time. And once that's all trimmed up, I'm just going to take some more of this medium and just work it up under any of the loose papers, making sure it's all adhered down. Now I'm going to grab a 220 grit sanding sponge. I always have these linked in my description box because I absolutely love them. I believe they're a great investment. And I'm just going to go around this entire piece, paying attention to those corners and edges and just giving it a distressed look. If you don't like the distressed look, you can definitely leave this out of there. And then I'm just going to grab just a regular piece of sandpaper in a 220 grit. That way I can just kind of go around distressing here and there where I think looks good. There's no rhyme or reason. I do use this little paint brush that I never use for painting. It's just to wipe away dust as I'm working. All right, now I've still got some of this cinnamon and dark and decrepit dust mixture left over from last week's project. So I'm just going to use that and just go around this paper around the edges. I just want it to look just a little aged, and I think it's just going to blend it in with the other paint, just making it look, I don't know, and to my eyes it looks better. Now I am applying this after I went over this paper with some decoupage medium and let it almost dry down. So that paper is still just a hair tacky. But again, I'm just going to work that all around that edge until I'm happy with it. Now, if I got some of that too wide onto the piece, I'm just going to use a baby wipe because, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I sealed this entire piece with clear liquid patina before doing this step. Well, I still have some of these swan castings that I had made up to sell on Whatnot. So I'm going to grab one and I'm going to paint it in just a white chalk paint. I decided to use this little sponge dauber just so I can get all that paint down into all of the crevices. Unfortunately, my little dauber, it's seen its day, so a lot of that sponge was starting to come out into my paint. So it got tossed away. And then I did move on to my chippy brush, which I don't know why I didn't use that to begin with. And I've also got the little crown here, and we're going to paint that as well. Once that is dried down, I've got some antique gold in the Paint Couture Lux Metallics, and I want to paint the crown in this color. That's the only piece that I am going to paint. And I do 2 coats on this crown with that Lux Metallic. Now I'm going to grab some clear wax. I'm going to completely cover this swan with that. You can see, I mean, it looks like brown coming off. Yeah, there was still some brown wax on this. I was like, oh my gosh, you did not clean this brush before using it. Shame on you. But that's okay, because next I plan on grabbing some dark wax by a DIY and just really pouncing that all over this swan. I do start with the feathers there because I want to see how that looks when I wipe some of that excess away, and I love it. So I will proceed to the rest of the neck and head and do the same thing. Now, to adhere this piece onto the center of our project, I'm going to be using some CA glue. I just feel this is the most permanent adhesion I can get without having to worry about it falling off. So I'm just going to get that all over. I'm going to hold it, and you can apply some weight to it and let that dry. And then I'm going to reattach the little brass piece that goes on the top. I will apply that crown, which you see I've already done. And then this project is complete. It's ready for display, and it's ready to find a new home. What do you guys think about project number 1? And project number 2, I've got this desk organizer. Not a big fan of the cherry color, but I love that it spins around. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to remove the what is this called, y'all? I know they call them Lazy Susans, but is there another name for them? But regardless, I'm going to clean this up very, very well, wiping it down, making sure it is completely dry after we clean. And I did spray it down with some Rust-Oleum Dark Walnut so I can prep it to use some milk paint. This is the color Harbor. This is the very first color milk paint I bought, but I'm going to apply this color, and I start with thinking I was just going to apply it to the outer surface and not the inside. But as I work on this piece, it progresses, and I just find ways to make this work. So I do apply a couple of coats, drying down with my heat gun in between the coats. And honestly, I think I applied 3 coats. And I did go ahead and bring that color to the inside because I didn't like the way it looked dark with that blue. So again, I painted the inside, but you can also see I forgot to spray paint the bottom. And you're going to see the difference that plays as far as the way that milk paint grabs on to the surface. All right, so after everything is dried, I'm going to be using the Fern Fables transfer book once again from IOD. I love this. If you love color, you got to get this. If you like to work with the transfers, oh my gosh, can I say it again? I love this transfer book. It's just so pretty. But I'm just going to pick me out some images. I want to put something on all four sides of this. And I just trim out what I don't want, keep what I do want, and once I'm happy with it, I'm just going to lay it right on down, and then we will burnish this piece on with one of the little transfer sticks. You guys have seen this plenty of times, so I'm going to go ahead and push a little forward. Do you guys see the bottom there? How a lot of that paint did not adhere. If you don't prep your surface with some kind of bonding agent, like sealing it with a paint or something, and you try to put milk paint on a slick surface, it's going to have a hard time bonding, so it is really going to crack off. Sanded it, sealed it in, so no more will flake off, but I just wanted to kind of touch base on that with you guys because I thought I had it recorded, but I did not. But anyway, I'm going to continue to apply these transfers onto our little organizer. Once I have that step complete, I'm going to grab a sanding sponge and go over the transfers very lightly. I just want them to look like they are worn like the piece is. The piece does have some of that crackling from that milk paint, and I just want it to all look intentional, like it has weathered a little bit over time. And then to seal it in, I will use some clear liquid patina, and then this project is complete. Now on to our final project. I have another pair of candlestick holders that I had found at the yard sales that I had gone to a few weekends ago. And you can see it's got that heart shaped on the top. It's got that ugly, if you like it, I'm sorry, but I think that color wood is just, it's not me. Okay, but I am going to remove and separate all the pieces that can be separated. They're just held in by some wood screws. It's just going to make it a little bit easier to sand and prep and paint. Now the little cup holder, the little candle cup holders have the metal piece in there, and I'm just going to use a little spatula. It's one of those Cricut spatulas. I'm going to call it a spatula. I'm sure it's called something different, but I'm just going to work it out of there. That way I don't get paint all over it. If you don't care about that, leave it in there and paint over it. That is all up to you. And I'm going to wipe these down very well with a cleaner. I am also going to remove the hanger piece on the back and set that aside because I will be reusing that. And once all those pieces are cleaned, I'm just going to use this 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to sand those down smoothly. I want to make sure I get off these are pretty heavily coated with some kind of sealer. I'm just going to scuff it up so my paint's going to stick a lot better. Now I've got the Rosette Molds from IOD. I'm going to grab some cornstarch, pick out the Rosette mold that I want to use, which is this one right here. We're going to put that cornstarch in there. This is just going to allow for an easier release of the clay. Now I really wanted to use resin. However, I don't know if I shared it here. I've shared it on Whatnot. But I've had an allergic reaction to the quick setting resin. And it was a pretty bad one. I will put a picture of what my arm looked like, and keep in mind this was on both arms, and then it also got on my face because I have a bad habit of touching my face. So it was also on my face. So I have a little bit of PTSD when it comes to using resin. Okay, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and use the clay. So we're just going to work that clay in. We're going to get it nice and flat, just kind of pushing out all of that excess away from it. And I will also use a little scraper just to kind of skim along the surface to get this as flat as I can. And I do like to kind of shake it side to side so it doesn't pull up my entire casting out of the mold. Flip it around, and look how easy that was to remove. Okay, so I don't want the outside of the flower. I just want the inside. So with an X-Acto knife, I am going to carve out all around the outside of the petals and remove that excess clay. I'm going to want these little rosettes right on top of that heart. Now, I got a little too much cornstarch, so with my brush, I'm just going to kind of wipe away some of that cornstarch and just kind of see how it's going to fit. Now, some of that clay is going to kind of want to fall in that hole. I mean, you know, it's gravity, and that's okay with me. So I have it kind of setting there to where it does kind of cave in just a little bit. And once I have two of those done, I'm just going to flip that over and around the outer edge where I know it's going to be sticking to the wood, apply some Titebond, a quick and thick, smearing it all around with my fingers, placing it gently right back in its spot, tapping down those edges, making sure it's all stuck in there. Now I'm going to grab the color Crinoline and cover these candlestick holders all over, working it around those castings very gently. I find that using the chippy brush is the easiest brush to use around these castings that are still not set up completely. And then we're just going to work that paint all around the sides, and I end up applying 2 coats. Now I did not paint the back side, and so with a baby wipe, I'm just going to clean up any of that paint that got around onto that side. Now the little flat cup holder pieces, I'm going to paint those in the color Apothecary, and I will apply this paint on the top side and the bottom side because as they are hanging on the walls, you will be able to see both the top and the bottom. Now, as far as the little cups, I at first tried to use some of the Dark and Decrepit liquid patina. I didn't like the way it looked. So once that had, I grabbed some walnut gel stain and went over that. And I did end up applying 2 coats of that gel stain. And then I'm going to take the other 2 pieces and I will distress those with some 220 grit sandpaper, paying extra attention around the edges. I'm not going to be grunging up. As you notice, I didn't grunge up anything, but if you want to add some grunginess, go ahead. But I just used sandpaper. Once I got that down to my liking, I'm going to grab that Apothecary once again with a chip brush. I'm just going to dab a lot of it off. I'm going to lightly go over those rosettes, adding some of that Apothecary color in there. I just figured that would kind of even out the top with the bottom. I do dry that down with my heat gun, and then I am going to apply a coat of clear wax on all of my pieces. The candle cups, because it has that gel stain on it, I did go ahead and coat that with some clear liquid patina. And don't forget to wipe away that excess wax. Now I'm just going to reassemble all of the pieces, putting those little metal cups back into the cups for the candles, just in case anybody wants to use these for their intended purpose. I like to put greenery in them, as you guys saw a few videos ago. But once those are put together, it's time to do something with the back. I just grabbed some packing type material. Kind of cut that out. Now, to adhere my pieces down, I did use a stick glue. You could also use, I think some of that two-sided tape might actually work better. Maybe that would be more permanent. I just worry about this paper coming off, but this is what I had. This is what I used, and it's just going to smear it all over the back. And then just place that right on top of the paper, pushing it down. Now, I do want to make a mental note of where the screws are going to be going. So once I get those down, I will go back and just kind of make sure I poke where those holes are with a little pokey tool. Reapply some more of that glue where I had to peel it down to find those holes, smooth it out, and then let it set up. And then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife once it's dry, just kind of going around the edge. It's just going to make it a little easier for me to sand off those edges. Now I do want to reapply the hangers. Once I get those hangers on and go around those edges with a 220 grit sandpaper, removing all that excess paper, this project will be done, and that will conclude all of our projects for this week's video. As always, guys, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I appreciate you all so very much. And be sure to let me know in the comment section which of these three was your favorite. Stay to the end. I will show them all together in the finale, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. And oh, come on over to Whatnot tomorrow, 1:30 Central. I am auctioning off this piece. I'm going to pop it right here. This little tray that I made, the wood round tray, it's going to be auctioned off. It's a 10-minute auction. If you're interested, or if you want to see what it sells for, come on over. The link will be in the description box. And with all that being said, guys, have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.